Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome listeners, you're on Big Little Small Talk with me, Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, and today we've got a special guest by the name of Tristan James. Now, Tristan, you may have seen around the traps, is an Elvis... You're going to clear this up for me, Tristan. Are you an Elvis impersonator or are you an Elvis tribute person?
It's technically a tribute, I call it, but in terms of people Googling me, people usually type in impersonator, because that's what they know. But my impression of a tribute is someone who pays respect and homage to someone, whereas an impersonator tries to do everything exactly the same and recreates a specific person or a moment in time, and I'm not quite doing that, which very, very similar though.
Now, I wouldn't do this to someone who's older, but you're... And the disadvantage of radio is that the listeners can't see how old you are unless they jump on the podcast later on. They'll see a photo of you. Mm. You're clearly not of the vintage to be an Elvis fan. How old are you?
I'm 37, so I'm of the vintage to be a tribute because Elvis lived to a ripe age of 42 years old. So I've got a few years left in that realm, but an Elvis fan. I grew up as an Elvis fan, not a big Elvis fan. My mum had me on the Beach Boys, Bill Haley, Elvis Presley. I listened to a lot of music growing up, classical music, but Elvis didn't really stick out majorly compared to everything else. I've been a professional DJ over 20 years too, so that's probably lent itself for me having an eclectic music taste as well. And yeah, Elvis just comes naturally in that regard, yeah.
So I really want to know the whole steps of like where you go from being not a normal guy or a guy who's working. What type of work were you doing apart from being a professional DJ?
Yeah, well, I was working in IT and previously in marketing when I lived in Brisbane for several years and studied at QUT, worked in marketing, worked in sales, and then on the weekends would be a DJ.
Right.
Yeah.
So when did you first put on the suit, or did it come incrementally?
No, nothing. I can't really incrementally do anything. I can't teach myself something slowly with no goal. My brain doesn't work that way. So I had relaunched my DJ business a couple of years ago, and I put it on the internet and a few different websites, like booking websites. And one booking website asks you what you do. It's an entertainment website, and you're a DJ, you're a singer, you're a trapeze artist. There's about 500 categories, and I was going through the list, and I don't know if I was having a wine or I was just having a bit of fun late at night, but I found Elvis impersonator, and I ticked it, and I forgot about it. But I don't even remember doing it. And then a couple of months later, a lady calls me going, "Hey, you're an Elvis impersonator. Can you come and sing at my mum's birthday?" And me being me, I just went, "Sure, absolutely, yes." And she didn't question me, and I didn't technically lie to her, but I definitely wasn't an Elvis impersonator or tribute artist at the time. So I said yes. We booked it all in. I had a couple of months up my sleeve to buy a really cheap jumpsuit off Amazon, which I did for a couple of $100. I already had all the sound gear because I'm a DJ, and I just set up a little kind of like karaoke app on my computer, rocked up and I did an hour show in Mango Hill at the Tavern for Blessed Barbara. And it's a little bittersweet, that's this story, because it was Barbara's last ever birthday. She had terminal cancer, and it was her family's last get-together for her. And they lost her 6 weeks after that party, and I later found out a photo of Barbara and I was put on her coffin as it went into the ground, because she's a huge Elvis fan. She was dressed in a beautiful Elvis outfit. Just, you wouldn't have known she was sick. And I just like stumbled my way through the performance, but I did that, and I just kind of thought, oh yeah, well this is pretty good. And then I got booked a few weeks later for another birthday, and that lady had something similar happen I think she lost someone, maybe her husband, I can't remember exactly, and I did that one too, and it just back to back just made me kind of get overwhelmed with purpose. There's no other reason I'm doing it. I didn't decide to do it. I didn't wake up and go, oh yeah, I can sing like Elvis. I just kind of fell into it with that story.
Yeah. What was the very first song that you sang?
Oh, I don't remember. It might have been Heartbreak Hotel or something. I could probably find out.
So in that period, like between where you thought, oh my God, I've committed to this, and when you did it, like were you just relentlessly, how did you remember all the words and everything?
Well, I didn't remember all the words. I had a little computer karaoke thing going. But yeah, when I have a date set for something, I can work backwards very easily. So I had a show recently at the Empire Theatre. When I booked it, I didn't necessarily know what I was going to do apart from Christmas. And then I thought, all right, well, I better book it. I better sort it out now that I've booked it in. So I work backwards when I do that. I set a goal, and then I go, all right, how am I going to do this by this date? And I usually think of too many ideas and the grandest version of it possible. And then when it gets to the week before, I freak out and go, yep, I can't do that vision, but that's a good idea for next time. So they call it hyperfixation. I don't know if I technically have that, but I feel like I do, where I just fixate and try and do something to my standard, which sometimes is maybe a little bit too hard on myself, but you then result in a product that's still great, even if you feel like you're sacrificing A, B, and C. Yeah.
Tell me about the hair, because the hair's a big part of Elvis, hey, and the moves and all of that. So I want to know about what it feels like for people to sort of adore you, but it's not really you. Like, is it
with the hair, or just separate? Is that two questions?
That's two questions. I want to know everything about it.
The hair is. Well, I'll talk about the hair first. Yeah. So I've got long hair. And it's since I started about 2 years ago, it's been an evolution. I didn't know how to do it straight away. I put too much product in it originally. In the summer months, I was dying last year at the Christmas lights because it was just all flat, and I was, it's the 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, but the 70s hair is big and buffy. And I've had the help of a local barber, Addison's Barber Shop, and he sponsors me, so he'll just do little touch-ups for me. And another couple of hairdressers around town have just kind of helped me find the right products to emulate it, because my hair is a bit thinner than Elvis Presley's. So Elvis got his hair done every day by his hairdresser, who more or less lived with him, even if he wasn't doing anything. He was always on show. He was very conscious about going out not looking perfect. I'm not. I don't. I just go down to the shops all the time, just whatever. But yeah.
So that first show that you did, you wouldn't have had the hair, would you?
Oh, I had hair, but it was very short, and I bought some fake sideburns off the internet for $80, and it looked fine. But it's been a bit of an evolution with doing it, and I'm really happy where I'm at now with it. It's taken a while. Most Elvis tributes wear wigs, but they cost thousands of dollars. So I don't wear a wig. People think it's a wig sometimes, which is a great compliment. But I do wear fake sideburns for your listeners. Just don't tell anybody. And they're imported from America from a guy who custom makes them, and they're the best in the world to use them. So I use the same supplier as that. But
wow, there's a whole industry, obviously, of Elvis stuff.
Oh yes, the jumpsuits in particular.
So we'll
get to that in a
question.
Yeah.
That's right. About sort of people, do people sort of go a bit too far, and they're sort of pouring you and loving, it takes them back to a time in their life that was so special, and is it?
They don't go too far. People put more energy into being critical than they do in being loving. And that's not to say that the people that are loving to me are not genuinely loving. The stories I've heard and the things that have been shared with me, especially since I've started doing aged care shows during the week. So on a Tuesday, Wednesday, for example, when I wouldn't do a ticketed show, I've probably done about 60 aged care shows in the last several months. And I got a message from a lady a couple of days ago, and she wanted to come to my show this weekend in Brisbane. I was doing a ticket lottery, and she shared with me that I was at the aged care facility where her mum was, her partner's mum, and they lost her a few days after that performance, but they hadn't seen her smile that much in so long, and it formed some beautiful final memories for them. And that was just, I just choked up a bit. And I don't get told these stories all the time, but when I find out about them, it's just, it really moves me. And my first aged care show was at Palm Lake, Toowoomba. And what was bittersweet about that was I had lost my grandma about 6 months before that show at the same place. So I had not been there since, and they were the first to book me. And my grandma never saw me do Elvis because she just didn't make it that long. But she knew about it before that. And so that was really serendipitous in a way too, to be sharing that joy and making people remember, especially. I find it unlocks people's memories, and I really find it in older gentlemen who maybe haven't dealt with things. And I met a gentleman who was in his 90s, lost his wife in 1977, the same year we lost Elvis Presley.
August, I remember.
And he was in care there, and I sang a particular song, and he was just waterworks the whole time. And I went up to him, I gave him a hug, and I said, "Yeah, mate, let it out. Like, it's okay to feel, and it's okay to remember." So I don't want to say I've become more philosophical or anything since I've been doing it, but geez, it's been an experience just to witness that and know what Elvis's music had as an impact on those people when they were younger or today. Elvis was the conduit for that. You know, whatever it was the moment in their time when he or she was still around, and you know, that in itself is just a huge. Oh, I can't explain it, you know. But then aside from that, the fandom, and you know, I don't claim to be Elvis Presley. I'm a tribute artist. Not everyone likes that. Some people, you know, don't touch the memory of the king. I see it as extending his legacy, and you know, like you'd have a cover band play the music of your favourite artist. I'm doing it in a way that you have a bit of a visual element too. So the fandom's just, you know, we've got a very nice little community going, and people interact all the time and follow what I do and come to the shows. I've had people come to several shows, and it's bonkers.
So you're doing it full time now, aren't you? You've given up any of the IT or the marketing and that.
Yeah.
What was that decision, or did that happen gradually too? You thought, I'm going to try and make a go of this full time.
Sometimes you have to be forced into things. At the time, it was the start of this year. Elvis was blowing up more and more and more with work and things that people wanted me to do, and I was working in marketing, and I was clearly dedicated to my Elvis project a bit more. Just so the employee that I had at the time and I, we just decided to part ways because
you got the sack.
Oh well, you know, yeah, but
mutual. Yeah.
It is, but you know what? I'm happy I did, because I knew that that job is not what I was meant to be doing, and they knew that, and I knew that. So yeah, got the sack. So I started my own company the year before, but I renamed it to Magnifico Creative, and Magnifico is an entertainment company which very heavily focuses on me as Elvis right now, but we'll be doing a bunch of other projects next year, and I've got other people who work for me. So it's a real great little thing to sink my teeth into, not just for me personally, but I've got a guy who does Roy Orbison, who I'll be bringing up and marketing around the place, and we'll be doing a show in Toowoomba soon. So yeah, it's good.
For you, just on that topic, do you see yourself doing Elvis for a long time, or you don't want to get pigeonholed into tribute type stuff?
It's a hard one. I've been an actor for a while, and I'm generally pigeonholed as an actor in, say, musicals as the funny-go-lucky guy. I think I can take it as far as I can and keep going. I'm not too worried about being pigeonholed, but I would like to. I am launching next year me as an artist as well, to be singing in a band or by the piano. in a bit of a Bublé style, you could probably say, because I enjoy more music than just Elvis Presley's. And from a business building perspective, not every function, although that they should, not every function wants an Elvis band. So if I'd like to do more gigs at, say, the corporate level, or a fundraiser or a ball or whatever, we're going to have a bit of a open band of multiple artists. So that's going to be fun. But I'll run for it for as long as I can.
Yeah, I think that's the right attitude, to take it as far as you can. I'll just remind the listeners that you're on 102.7 FM, and we're on Big Little Small Talk with Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, and our Elvis tribute impersonator, tribute person, Tristan James. So I want to talk about the era. Which eras do you love? Do you love the jumpsuity 70s era, or the swivelling hips? I suppose he was always the swivelling hips, wasn't he?
Yeah, I try and lean into what I can do. I wouldn't say I'm the world's best dancer, but also I kind of, I don't make fun of myself, but my body type is probably Elvis 1974 right now, which is okay, but I'm working on probably getting down to 1972 when he was in his prime. 1972 was the Aloha from Hawaii concert, where it was the first solo artist to live broadcast around the world a concert, and it's the most iconic image of Elvis because he has the white jumpsuit with the eagle, red, white and blue on it, big huge cape, and there's tens of thousands of people in this place in Hawaii. He looked pretty good then, so I'm working on that. But the 50s and the 60s are classic Elvis. 60s, he's obviously in a lot of movies. I really enjoy the 60s music, probably the most, and that's probably where I'm at with my singing ability too. There's some songs that Elvis Presley did in the 70s, such as the song Hurt, You Gave Me a Mountain, the big, huge ballads. I do attempt some of them, but I'm very aware of where I'm at in my career, so I don't try and go too far. But the 60s songs, like Little Egypt, the 68 comeback special that Elvis was on, he did like a collection of his old songs and his new songs. He wore the black leathers. I really enjoy that era. It's a lot of fun for me. The movie songs, a lot of people get a kick out of because the movies were so popular. Can't Help Falling in Love from the movie Blue Hawaii. There's a whole heap of those. So, and the 50s songs are great, but I feel at home, and I feel like I have a lot of fun when I do that middle era of Elvis's life.
You were talking before about getting the really, really good sideburns, and I'm sure having costume malfunctions must be a part of the job.
Yeah.
How many costumes have you got?
So I own 2 jumpsuits from the 70s, a red one and a white one, which are both being used a lot, and we're due for another one. I've got about 6 or 7 different Elvis shirts from the 60s and 70s, and I've got a couple of 50s outfits. So let's say a dozen or so different items and pieces. But it's never enough sometimes. You've got to keep mixing it up, and depending on the weather.
Yes, well, you sweat like mad, I'm sure, most of the time.
Yeah, you got to hand wash it all mostly.
Yeah. Is it big business that buying that stuff? You said it's very expensive, the sideburns and the wigs and things. There would be websites and stuff like that, I would imagine.
Yeah, Elvis is the biggest tribute in the world. Out of the number of people who do it, there's probably tens of thousands. And the jumpsuits in particular, there's about 3 makers, one in America, one in Canada, and one in Thailand. And they range in price from a couple of grand to $7,000 for a jumpsuit with the belt and the cape. So the Aloha from Hawaii one, which if you see the photo, if you look at the original suit with all the embellishments, these are exact copies. The fans demand it, but these makers make the exact same copy as Elvis wore. So yeah, it definitely is a small fortune to get a new jumpsuit.
I'm thinking that's a tax deduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's an overseas purchase, but yeah, it's a tax. Yeah, it is a tax deduction, but it's still a fair bit to fork out either way.
For sure.
So I'm working on getting another one soon, but yeah.
Now, you recently went to Europe, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that competition. Was that your first sort of really big competition?
Yeah, it was a bit probably not premature, but my wife and I were going to Europe for our official honeymoon because we got married during COVID, and we always wanted to go to have a white Christmas. So we went to Europe and we went to Finland and we saw the reindeer and the snow and we're in minus 29-degree freezing temperatures. We're staying in this glass igloo place in Finland, and here's me carrying her along this little carry-on bag with my jumpsuit rolled up in it. So I carried my jumpsuit around 5, 6 different countries because at the end of our holiday, which was early January, there was the European Elvis Championships on in Birmingham in England, and I entered it. And I'd only been doing Elvis for not that long at the time, so it was a bit of a gamble, but you know what? The experience I had at that, I'll never forget. And I didn't win the competition, but I made a lot of friends, and English people are fantastic. They say Aussies are very friendly, but English people are ridiculously friendly. And Birmingham was a nice little town that we stayed in. And yeah, you know, I did the gospel competition where they sing gospel songs. I sang "How Great Thou Art," and I was the first guy up too. So I walked up and I walked out, and I was just trying to I knew I wasn't going to win, so I just made the crowd laugh, and I was like, "Well, g'day everyone. How's Eurovision going?" And then as a bit of a joke, because it definitely wasn't Eurovision, I sang "How Great Thou Art" to the best of my ability, and then another guy came on half an hour later, John Collins, I think his name was, and he sang it so well. And I was like, well, he's winning, and he won that competition.
So what are all the different categories? You can go in the gospel. What else?
That particular competition had a gospel comp and then just a regular tribute artist competition with different heats. So I did that one too, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Was it just a surreal moment to be surrounded by all these Elvises?
Yeah.
Or you just kind of take it on board?
I just took it all in. I was there on my own. My wife had gone home just to save us a bit of money of me staying a bit longer. Yeah, it was cool. And the interesting thing about it was I took 2 photos 7 days apart. I took a photo with all the Elvises in Birmingham, and then 7 days later I flew home to Australia, and silly me, didn't go straight home. I went to Sydney to a Elvis competition straight away in Penrith, and I met for the first time a bunch of Australian Elvises. So I've got 2 photos at home 7 days apart. So I technically have probably set some record for being in Elvis competitions in 2 hemispheres. But
I like the sound of that. That's great. And
Yeah.
What do you reckon the common motivating factor for people? Is it because they love the music, or they love the what do you think would be the underlying connection between you all?
I think it's a love for Elvis Presley. I talked to one friend in the UK that I made, and I said to him, you're going to get up and you could do your own show. You could perform as yourself. And he said, I have no interest in doing that. I'm an Elvis Presley tribute. I do that show, and he's been doing it for several years, and he said, that's all I'll ever do. I don't want to be on stage. Whereas, me, I've been on stage and all different things in my life. I love it. I don't mind whether I'm Elvis or not. But Elvis is a great conduit to make people happy, so that's fine. But yeah, I think it's the love for Elvis. I haven't asked every single tribute I know how they got into it, but I'd imagine it was probably someone might have said they sound or they look like him, or they were a big fan. There's a lot of gentlemen in Australia who are probably in their 60s and over who do it, and then there's a category that are probably, I'll say, under 40, which there's a bunch of new guys coming through like myself and a few others who do. Some of them will just do 50s Elvis, and some will just do 70s Elvis. I do all the eras at the moment. So yeah, I'm not really sure the exact what links us all together, but it's definitely a love for Elvis. Yeah.
Do you look at say in a big competition like that, do you look at some of them and you just think, well, I'm better than him, but probably not quite as good? Are there any female Elvis impersonators?
Yeah, there are, actually. Yeah, there is one lady down south called Shelvis, or She Elvis. I don't know how she pronounces it exactly. And she's just the lovely. I met her a couple of years ago. She's just so lovely. There's 2 in Australia, I think, and there's a She Is the King. There's a tour coming to Toowoomba in, I want to say, April, with 4 Elvises that tour Australia, and that lady's coming up with that tour. So your listeners, if you want to see a lady do Elvis, you'll see her there. Yeah, so there is. Yeah, and the jumpsuit makers make female Elvis costumes too.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, do you look at some guys and they're, the grey, they haven't touched up their hair and their hair dye and their grey's coming out and they're a bit paunchy or a bit too skinny or, do you just sort of think, or are you much more generous than that and you think, everyone have a
go? I grew up, being the larger kid, and I'm not the exact shape of Elvis right now, and I have had people go out of their way to tell me that more than a couple of times online, especially online, and also even in person. And so no, I don't. But the thing is, with the hair or touching up, everyone tries their absolute best to look great, because it's a bit of a privilege to do it. But not everyone looks the same, and maybe that's not the way I would do something, but I don't judge them for it, because who am I to do that? Where I lean on certain skills I have, so I'm more of the character and the charismatic Elvis on stage. That's what I see as my strength, and I happen to sing and dance and dress up and look a bit like him. Whereas some people get up and they're incredible, immaculate singer, but they maybe just don't dance as much. Everyone has their strengths.
Do you spend a lot of time, maybe not so much now that you're sort of perfecting a little bit, but did you spend a lot of time watching the videos and trying to get the moves and videoing yourself to see how you looked and things?
Yeah, it's a very humbling thing to do that. I haven't perfected it whatsoever, so it's an ongoing process. I still listen to, especially Spotify, all the time, just listening to how he sounds, because I have an Australian accent. I'm not American, so it is hard to slip into it sometimes. And from a competition standpoint, sound exactly like him, which is not easy. But I realise that there's competitions and you can do your own shows as a tribute, and people don't always need it to be exactly the same. And it's interesting when it's not. Sometimes you do your own version of it. So yeah. Have
you ever been asked to do anything weird, like marry someone or perform?
I've been asked to do weird things. Yeah, I have. I'm booked for a wedding next year, not to marry them, but to MC their wedding. I have been in a supplements commercial in Brisbane where I had to drink some protein powder and then go like Viva Las and then the name of the actual business. That was weird. I performed on a train a few weeks ago for a birthday. That was not weird. That was really fun. Was
that in Toowoomba?
Yeah, in Toowoomba. Yeah.
Was that a birthday?
Yeah, 60th birthday.
Right.
Went from Toowoomba to Clifton and back, and I went from carriage to carriage with my guitarist, and we sang songs. There's a few not weird ones, but I've definitely been asked to do a lot of things. I've had a record, a young Triple J band called Teenage Dads, who were really popular. They got me to come to a record store and just kind of hang out with their fans when they released their new record. They just thought it'd be funny. Yeah.
Tristan, are you pinching yourself and thinking, sometimes I can't believe where I am, really? This life that is so much, mostly joyous and fun.
Yeah, I've always had a side hustle of creativity, whether it being DJing or theatre, and I never thought it would be a actual main hustle, and it is now. And it's had its scary moments and ups and downs, but it's building really well. So I'm looking to the future really positively. But yeah, it's nuts.
Do you think part of why you're doing well is because of your marketing degree as well?
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I noticed when I started that not everyone markets themselves terribly well. Maybe just catering for their market, because perhaps some people don't mind what the marketing looks like. But for me, I wanted to make a bit of a point to do great marketing, and I think I do. It's very subjective, but I've enlisted the help of local videographers, especially. We had a guy called Dakota come and we did a little preview movie of my Burke and Wills show, and we went to the Burke and Wills and we filmed this little movie of me walking in, getting out of a car, walking in, and as the revolving door at the Burke and Wills revolved, it went from 50s Elvis to jumpsuit Elvis. it's all awesome little commercial that he made for me.
Where can we see that?
It's on my YouTube or Facebook page.
Which is called?
Tristan James as Elvis. If you type that into Facebook, you'll find me. Or just type it into Google, Tristan James as Elvis. That'll find me too. But yeah, and I've had local photographers take great photos, and I really enjoy marketing, so I like to do it well. And I've toured around this corridor of Australia. I've gone up to Mackay, down to Kingscliff, all around in between, and no one knows who I am. I've just put up a good poster and a few videos, and at Mackay we had 170 people sold out, which was great. That was only second to my show last week at the Empire Theatre. We had 270 or so. That was my biggest show I've had so far. And yeah, before Toowoomba, like in Mackay, they didn't know who I was. But I think the marketing and making someone feel confident to spend their money on something, it was good enough. So yeah.
What do you, well, I suppose you charge different amounts, but what do you charge for a show? Is it like for a ticket? Say
yeah, it just really depends. I mean, at the Toowoomba Regional Council was nice enough to give us a grant to help subsidise the cost of the show. But I think the average price for that show was about $35. Okay.
So it's accessible, obviously.
Yeah, that was really important to me because, I'm starting out and people are like, well, who's this guy? But with pricing something, you don't want to go too cheap because then it's like, oh, what's this? I may not... What am I getting for my money? If it's $10, you wouldn't expect much. So I found that as a good price point. There's some that tour from overseas who maybe charge $80 to $100, but they're an overseas touring act and they've been doing it for 20 years. So yeah, it's a hard one, but a lot of people have commented that they would actually be happy to pay more, and if we went into the main theatre, for example. So that's in my brain right now for next year. What we're going to do will be at the Empire again because they support local really well.
What was that terminology that you used that you describe yourself as? Not aspirational, but you like to fixate on something.
Oh, hyperfixation.
Hyperfixation.
Yeah, I think it's I'm not sure. I think it's an official thing. I don't know. You read things on the internet. You're like, oh, well, I probably do that a lot.
That sounds like me. You have to do Googling. I'll just remind the listeners that they're on 102.7 FM and we are in Big Little Small Talk. And my name's Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and we're talking to Tristan James, who's an Elvis Presley impersonator. Tribute. Oh, I'll never get it right, will I? Sorry, Tristan.
You know what? It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. How much of Elvis's life were you and are you fascinated with? The whole sort of Graceland, owning that at 22, his marriage to... Well, we'll start at Graceland. Do you ever want to go there? Do you think you will go there?
I will go there. I want to go there. It's just when I went to Europe, I'm still paying for that. So Graceland in a few years' time, they have Elvis Week every week at Graceland around the time of Elvis's death, and they have a memorial and a big concert. So that would be lovely to get along to that.
What time of the year is that?
August.
Oh, in August.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. And they celebrate his birthday. They celebrate Christmas at Graceland. They just had a concert a few days ago, and they had big acts like Post Malone and other big artists come and sing Elvis songs at Graceland for a Christmas special, which was beautiful. Yeah, I'd love to go there one day.
Right. What about sort of all of his life, him being a twin and his background, and are you really interested in all of that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the new movie came out right when I started as a tribute artist, actually, and that was another factor that made me go, okay, well, there's a bit of momentum here. Let's do it also.
Thoughts on the movie?
I love the movie. There's a few people from Toowoomba in the movie, actually, just so you know.
Tell me that story.
So I do musical theatre with a gentleman by the name of Russell Reynolds, and he's a local police officer, and he's been an actor for several years. He's been in big Hollywood blockbusters like Pirates of the Caribbean, King Kong, and there's one scene where Elvis is about to go on to this TV program, but he has to wear a black suit and he's not allowed to move. He has to sit on a chair because everyone was trying to censor him at the time. So Russell comes out as a tailor and hands Austin Butler a suit, and he's right there in the frame. So that's bit of a Toowoomba identity in the movie. But I love the movie, and I've watched it a bunch of times, and every time it gets to the '68 comeback special where they're talking about, we got to make a statement because the president was shot, and they sing "If I Can Dream." That's you may have been going to ask me, but that's my favourite Elvis Presley song. If I Can Dream.
Yes.
I have not cried every time I watch the movie and that song comes on. It's very well put together, and Baz Luhrmann uses a bit of fiction and fact in how he presents it, but there's a storytelling reasons for that. And and after I saw the movie, I then listened to Priscilla and Ginger's audiobooks, which are basically their autobiographies.
Who's Ginger?
Ginger was Elvis's girlfriend for the last few years of his life, and they are very eye-opening, and it's very real and raw with what happened in his life, especially in those last few years and months.
You mean the descent into sort of drug addiction and alcoholism,
just
eating
everything,
excess,
everything. Yeah, there's a lot of stories on there which I won't necessarily go on about, but some people like to just think of happy thoughts. But he had a lot of things going on there, and yeah.
Well, he's famous for the peanut butter, the deep fried peanut butter and banana sandwiches, isn't he? And I read that was called the Velvet Elvis, that sandwich. And coincidentally, as you would know, because I know that you're an avid listener of Big Little Small Talk, we had a lady called Velvet Amour on last weekend who is a burlesque dancer. And I thought, what a weird coincidence. That Velvet Elvis is the name of the sandwich.
That's amazing. Elvis would fly to a different city just to go eat a particular type of food with his friends, and he was very gluttonous. He'd eat a whole tub of yogurt in one go, and Ginger would try and say, "Okay, I think you've had enough," and he'd just be like, "No, I want more. Why can't I have more?" But equally, there was also really great stories about him doing things a bit crazy. One time he was in Vegas and he had a telescope looking at this car dealership, and he's like, "Hey guys," he called his manager, "order 6 cars from that dealership right now, 6, whatever they were, but they have to deliver them in half an hour, otherwise they don't get paid." And he just did it so he could watch them just frantically run around through the telescope. but they did it, and they got them all delivered on time. And he just gave them away to people.
Right.
So he's very, very giving, very genuine man. Although he had some quirks, I say to people he died because he loved his fans too much. He got given an insane schedule. He didn't have a lot of control with that, but he didn't want to say no, and he didn't want to disappoint his fans. If there was more standards in place around that, we probably wouldn't have lost him.
And the whole relationship with Colonel Tom Parker and the fact that he had migrated to America illegally, and that was the reason why Elvis wasn't allowed to perform outside of North America, wasn't it? Yeah,
there's a few theories, and there's a bunch of things in different online articles about that, but it's suspected that Colonel Parker maybe murdered someone right before he left, I think it was Holland, and came over, so he was so nervous about leaving the country if he was to get extradited that he never left. So he created all this world of Elvis not having to leave the country.
I'll tell you what was really interesting too about, you talked about the Elvis suit. I was listening to an interview with Baz Luhrmann's wife. Is it Catherine? I can't remember her name. Martin. And she was talking, she had, I don't know, half a dozen suits. The one where he stands up, the one where when he sits down so that the legs don't come up, and they would sew the actor into them, and one of the dancing ones, and that was a fascinating interview as well.
Yeah, movie magic. They probably did a lot of different things with that. Austin Butler wore a lot of wigs because he's a blonde naturally. One of the great things about the movie, some people may not know, is Austin Butler sang for the first half of the movie. So all the 50s and some of the 60s, it's actually Austin Butler's voice, and then they migrated to mixing them together, and then finally to Elvis's voice. And the climax of the movie, where they're in 1977 in that big in the round stadium, and Elvis sings Unchained Melody, and they made Austin Butler look as good as they could, but obviously him in a fat suit's a bit strange. But that was just a real moment for me too, because it just was. They then cut to the original footage of Elvis in that concert, And most of these concerts are on YouTube for free. You can just watch the whole thing. Oh, it's just magical.
Now I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is it Unchained Melody that
Yeah.
you loved? Can you give me the chorus of that?
Oh, I know. If I Can Dream was the song
Yeah,
I
If I
loved.
Can Dream.
Unchained Melody I don't currently sing because I just don't. But you want me to do
the chorus of If I Can Dream?
Oh, free show, Megan O'Hara Sullivan.
Maybe the listeners.
Yeah, okay, all right, that's fine. I'm not warmed up, listeners,
No,
but
sorry.
there must be lights burning brighter somewhere. Got to be birds flying higher in a sky so blue. If I can dream of a better land where all my brothers walk hand in hand, tell me why. Oh, why? Oh, why won't my dream come true? Oh, why?
Oh my goodness,
That'll do.
That's chilling. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much. That was just gorgeous.
When I do it like that, it's like you can't hear any other music, obviously, so you get self-conscious about how you sound, and
Well, I reckon you sound pretty good, just quietly.
Oh, thank you, yeah.
That was just beautiful.
a bit of fun.
Now, before I took you down that rabbit hole, I wanted to go down another rabbit hole, which was Lisa Marie Presley. Are you fascinated? I love celebrity gossip, I'm ashamed to say. But her life and, being married to Michael Jackson and then losing her son and all of that.
Yeah, I don't have a... Some people think I'm a huge Elvis historian sometimes, and I know a fair bit, and I know Lisa Marie and what happened, and obviously when I was a child, married to Michael, but I don't have like a huge knowledge of every single part of the family and their lives, and I'm trying my absolute best to read up on them all, but yeah, it was terribly tragic what happened, and she's obviously buried in the meditation garden now with her father, and Priscilla is scheduled to be in that garden too.
And what's happened to Ginger then? What's happened in her life?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the Linda Thompson is a lady who dated Elvis for a while, and she goes around to different conventions and they make appearances at different festivals and tribute competitions and things like that. But Ginger, I'm not sure, to be honest. I wouldn't want to say something that's not right. So, but her audiobook is very fascinating. If you want to know about the last moments of Elvis's life, really great.
Yeah. And what age did you say he was? He was 42.
42, yeah.
Gosh. Yeah, I think everyone listening will remember where they were when they heard the news of Elvis Presley dying.
People share that with me a lot, where
Do
they were.
Interesting, yeah.
And I'm an 85 vintage, so I don't know that, but I had the same experience with when Michael Jackson died. I was driving on the Ipswich motorway to Toowoomba. I remember exactly where I pulled over. I heard it on the radio, and I was quite upset. I'd really connected with MJ growing up in the 90s, and I imagine that's a little bit of how they felt. And prior to that, I saw my mother go through that when Princess Diana died. I was in grade 6. I remember that like it was yesterday too. Just those moments just burn into your brain. And Elvis dying would have been no different. People would have been, especially Australian people who wouldn't have had the opportunity. They're probably hoping he would come here one day.
Oh wow, yes, obviously
never did.
I always laugh when I go to aged care places and they might be having the sing-along and they're having, roll out the barrel, and I think those people, that was kind of wartime songs. These people who are in aged care places, they love Elvis Presley, they love Johnny O'Keefe. That's the age that's the music that they want to hear. So
yeah.
I can understand why you'd be so popular at those places now.
I've met some people who have... One lady claimed to have met Elvis, and I'm sort of dubious when people say that sometimes, but they said they did, so I believed her. So that was pretty interesting. Yeah. A couple of people come up in those situations, but yeah, there's just a huge love of Elvis. I've been to Palm Lake Toowoomba about 4 or 5 times in 1 year. They just can't get enough of it. So, and it's a good place to practice too, and to form. Into like going to the gym is good for muscles. Singing often, especially aged care multiple times a week, is great for the voice. to really develop and think about how you're doing songs and how you're doing the voice. Because when I do the shows now, I speak as Elvis the whole time. I did do half and half before, but then it was a bit too confusing for my brain, plus everyone else's. So if I'm on, I'm on. And if I'm off, I'm off. I'm off right now.
Just except when you were on before and saying that beautiful.
Yeah. That I had to wake up a bit to do that. Yeah.
Oh, it was divine. Just watching you was so lovely. I'm running out of time, as I always do. I always like to finish my my interview, Tristan, asking someone who is their favourite royal person. Now, do you have a favourite royal?
You know, it's probably the Queen. But yeah, as I mentioned before, I had a lot of time for Princess Diana when I was a child, and my mother adored her, and obviously everyone's seen The Crown and all the ups and downs of that family, but yeah, probably Princess Di and the Queen equally. I'm not sure who I like more.
What is it about the Queen that you loved?
Oh, she's just a lovely old duck, wasn't she? She's just great, and she just got through so much, and she just dedicated her life to the monarchy. It was just incredible. So that's probably my favourite royal.
Yeah, lovely. What about in 3 words? Can you describe yourself in 3 words? I am.
In 3 words, I am Elvis tribute artist. But I am open to new. I'm always looking to the horizon, what else I can do, how far I can push myself. I don't try and get too limited by a box I put around myself. I'm always looking at the next thing. So yeah, open to new is probably 3 words to describe me.
Open to new, I like that. What about, what was your thought the last time you looked in the mirror?
Oh, that's a hard one, Megan. You know, it's tough. A lot of people look in the mirror and maybe are or aren't happy with how they look. Even the most beautiful celebrities in the world are on interviews talking about things they don't like. But, you know, I'm pretty content with myself. I think it's okay to accept yourself, even if everything doesn't match up for your long-term goals. If you don't accept who you are and stop and smell the roses a bit, not even just how you look, but just where you're at, I think that can be a slippery slope. So I've really been thankful lately, just stopping to go, hey, things are going well. Yeah, you're getting there with your looks. Oh, look, your Christmas photos this year look a bit better than last year's Christmas photos. Isn't that great? Yeah.
I like that. I think that's a lovely thought. What about if you could travel back in time? Where would you set the controls for?
Yeah. Oh man. Apart from maybe dying of some disease, if I went there, I'd love to go to the Old West. Because I just love that whole period of the world. That being said, yeah, I'd love to see Elvis Presley live especially like his original 50s days, like at the Louisiana Hayride, and when he was first coming up. But, you know, if people comment when they talk to Elvis that he was just like a regular guy, when he wasn't on stage and just chatting, he's just a nice, shy. I'm probably more extroverted than he is, but he was just a nice, shy guy. So I digress. I'd probably go back to around then, all the Old West, and just get it on the country and trying to get shot or something, I guess.
Are you living inside a John Wayne movie? Is that what we're talking?
Could be.
McClintock or something like that.
Well, Elvis Presley's first movie, Love Me Tender, is set in the West, in the Wild West, and it's set right as the Civil War came to an end. And Elvis's song American Trilogy is about the bringing together of both sides of the American Civil War. So that's why we talked about Dixieland, which is a bit of a, you know, you can't, it's not socially acceptable anymore. That's why the Dixie Chicks, and it's now called the Chicks. But with American Trilogy, it's a song about bringing together both sides and then unifying in harmony and being together. And Elvis's first movie is all about that, but it's set in the West, so I really like it.
Oh, it's lovely.
Yeah.
I was going to say to you before when I asked you the question about the royal, your favourite royal, I interviewed Ruby Slippers, who is a performer here in Toowoomba as well, and her answer was Elvis because he's the king.
Oh, that's something Ruby would say.
I thought that you might say the same. Okay, my very, very last question is, and this is going to be hard for you, what's the song that can't keep you off the dance floor?
Any song? Well, that's a tough one. I mean, I really, as an 80s kid, growing up, there's a lot of that era of music that I love. So the Dirty Dancing soundtrack is pretty good. I've Had the Time of My Life by Bill Withers. That can't really keep me off the dance floor. And being a disc jockey my whole life, it's hard to love music sometimes because you hear it so often, all the hits. But we'll go to Elvis Presley. Suspicious Minds. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche, but it's a fantastic song.
Hard to dance to, though.
Yeah, you have a bit of a boogie to it.
Yeah,
a bit. Yeah. But Little Egypt is my favourite 60s Elvis song. And it's just really fun. I won't sing it, but yeah.
I'm sure the listeners would like it, and I know I would. But we've run out of time, unfortunately.
No worries.
So we're going to go for Little Egypt.
Little Egypt.
I don't think I've even heard it before.
You'll love it. Just have a
okay,
listen.
well, I think hopefully we'll play a little clip of it after this interview finishes. Tristan, that has just been lovely speaking to you. I've loved your enthusiasm and your joy and what you're doing, and I know that the listeners and I will watch your career with anticipation.
Thanks, Megan. It's been really nice to share my story a bit and to give you a little bit of a background and behind the scenes of it. Like I said when we started, some people don't like that you're a tribute artist, and that can be a bit overwhelming sometimes. So I hope people understand that there's a person behind it with good intention. And I'm just trying to make people happy. So thanks for giving me this opportunity to have a chat.
It's lovely. Thank you so much. That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.